As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
There's no crying in baseball!
I ate his liver with some fava beans. A nice cliente.
That was totally wicked!
If I can change, and you can change, everybody can change!
And welcome to another episode of your next favorite movie podcast. See, I want to get that screwed up already with introductions. But anyway, guys.
We'll record it.
No, we're good.
We'll dub it.
It's me, Chris. And I'm here with Chad.
Chad, hey, what's up?
And then today we got some great guests. Returning guest who was actually our favorite that we had a great conversation with last time.
We know you're starstruck right now.
I am.
Us being back on, so that's what's
right.
happening.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, Will, you're gonna have to turn your camera off. They can't handle it.
I'll turn my back around.
There you go.
We'll do it that way. Confession, guys. So anyway, so we're gonna have these two guys introduce themselves like we did last time, and we're gonna catch up. So how about we just start with either one of you guys?
Will, I'm gonna start.
Take it away.
I'm Alan Dunford. I am the co-writer of Pocus Hocus. And yeah, we came on before. We had such a good time, and we decided that, you know what, we'll reach out and maybe see if they want us back again, because we kind of talked about it and they followed through.
Stop.
And
Stop.
now we're here. But yeah, so I guess we'll get more into it. So I'll go ahead and stop that for right now.
Okay.
All right. Will, go ahead.
I am Will Radford. I am the co-writer of Pocus Hocus, and I am here with Alan to talk about Parasite, among other things. Parasite, and also the 4th issue of Pocus Hocus, which is coming out very soon, and I'm very excited about that also. So.
Well, we appreciate you guys for coming on and doing this. I wish Josh was here again so that he could also be part of this, because he would just absolutely like you guys a lot.
I'm just going to take it personal now, because he's 0 for 2.
I know, right? It's like, Josh, what are you doing? You're missing out, buddy. But yeah, so I think the last time we talked, like we were talking a little bit earlier, trying to catch up a little, just between us. But sharing with the audience, I think the last time we talked was in February. And at that time, we were at what, issue 2? Is that correct?
No, we were, so we were launching issue 3.
Issue 3 at the time.
That's
okay.
Right. Yes, yeah. Because we launched that at the end of January and it ran through February.
That's
okay.
Right.
Yeah. So if you can, catch us up on, again, just for new listeners, of course, and then also for old listeners who are still with us, of course. Explain to us about this story and where we're at now.
All right. Will, you are so much better at this than I am.
Well, our hero, our protagonist, Pocus Hocus, has sold his soul to demons for actual magic powers to become a famous magician, which he has. And the reason he did this was to impress his father, who was the world's famous magician. That's Richard Hocus. And the night of his big opening show, after he sells his soul, his father passes away. So that's sort of the start of his beginning to regret, in Faustian tradition, beginning to regret his selling of his soul. And he has been hit with a very strong moral dilemma now, because the demon that he sold his soul to has returned and has given him a dilemma. Not a dilemma at all, actually, has basically demanded that he help him retrieve 5 souls after the demon in question murdered 5 of his demon colleagues in a gambling card game gone wrong.
We promise this story is actually really funny too.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying it. And one of the things I really like is that it's also been kind of like a quick read for me, because I don't know, I've been reading comics for a long time. So when I read the dialogue, it's easy for me to kind of jump and all this stuff. But as I'm doing it, I'm also not just seeing the art, but I'm also picturing it as like a movie or a short in my head, and it's just kind of smooth. It's really well written, and I'm just enjoying how the personalities of these characters interact with each other.
Yeah. So it's kind of like what Will said. We're pretty much picking up. Issue 4 picks up right where issue 3 left off, and issue 3 begins where issue 2 left off, where Pocus's assistant Emily finds out that Pocus sold his soul. And issue 3 just follows their journey into hell to go straight to the demon. She doesn't want to wait around for him.
Yeah,
And
she's such a strong character, and like she's the one that keeps him focused, if you will. So
Focus.
Yeah. Whenever Will and I were writing Emily, I think that was something that we kind of set out the gate. Like we wanted one strong character that really kept everything together, and we didn't want Emily to fall into the stereotype of the assistant. Really, she's kind of the one that's in charge.
Yeah,
for a lot of respects.
Absolutely.
And we wanted Emily, I guess, to kind of what would you think, to take the reader's perspective on what is this idiot doing?
Pretty much slowly but surely, I think. And that's been the fun of writing that character too, is that with each passing issue we are integrating her story more and more into the main arc of like the storyline, and it always kind of started that way because we knew in the first issue that she was going to be in the background, but that she would play a much bigger part later, going forward. And we always just really like that dynamic, the idea of like, you see a character and you maybe notice, and then later it's like, oh, that's the character from the
right. There's nothing like seeing a strong progression too for the character and seeing where they go. So I'm interested to see where her journey is going to go as well, because I know there's going to be some changes for her. Obviously she's stepping up her game, and it's going to be quite interesting. And I got to give props to y'all's artist again, by the way. Can you share you guys share who your artist is a little bit and how that is going as well?
So our series artist is Brian Milando, and then the colorist is Jason Smith, and both those guys work so well together. And so Brian, Brian is better than what we could ever ask for. And I think a lot of that, though, Brian's also very humble, and he gives us a lot of credit for the script. But really, he takes our ideas and he makes them better. So he even edits as he goes. He's like, hey, I think this would look good. What do you think? And we're like, yeah, perfect. Like, if he thinks something's going to look better or flow better or read better, I mean, who are we to stop him? He definitely is. He's awesome to say the least. And then how Jason brings everything to life with the vibrant colors, and even when he shows the muted world in black and white, like I think that we have something special with these guys.
Absolutely. It's such and I love like how the colors are. It's very like a Wizard of Oz effect, like the movie and stuff. So it's really cool to watch that as well.
So that's like a perfect segue for the next thing I was actually about to bring up. Will said this before on another podcast, and obviously I'd love for you to talk about it again now, but Will pretty much said this issue was a very important one for us in a lot of respects. So Will, do you want to go and take it away from here?
Yeah, no, I think it was a really important issue because it's finally like, issue 2 is more than just exposition, but it's finally that point where everything feels kind of like released. So it's like, okay, we've set the stage. It's like, we've set our stage with our backstory. We've set our stage with our reality present moment. And now we get to like really go off and explore the farther reaches of this world. So, I don't like to use the expression like, there's more action in it, even though that's technically true. But because it's not like that there's just more fighting and then that's it or something. It's the idea of just going deeper and deeper into this world and into this story. And issue 3 really lets lets it all out, I feel like.
Right.
And then issue 4, out of the bottle. Yeah. I mean, it really does. And issue 4 doesn't really let up. I mean, after that, I think, when we get to issue 4 territory, we're pretty much in that world, and we're soaring through it at this point, which has been a lot of fun for Alan and I. It's just, so much fun to go there creatively and imaginatively.
Oh, I
Yeah,
bet. That's
so
usually the fun part, and then
Yeah. Oh yeah.
once you got
yeah.
things established, and it's like, oh man, now there's a lot I can just get right into this.
it's funny because you know, and I can't wait to talk about. There's something that happens in issue 4 that we wrote when we were writing issue 1, and we built this huge elaborate piece around it ultimately. But one thing that I find funny is whenever you really go back and start dissecting your writing and what you were looking at, issue 3 was actually the whole plot of it. The big chunk of it came about. Well, they're going to hell. How do we get them there? Okay, cool. We already have our box from issue 2. We can just use that. Perfect. What are they going to do when they're there? How do we get them from point A to point B? And make it make sense, because we didn't just want to throw them in there and then be like, okay, cool, go. We wanted things to happen. We wanted the excitement to be there. And all of that was actually, it came about because of one joke that Will had. And the joke was, wouldn't it be funny if they killed some demons and wore their skin and then ran into the mother later? And that was, okay, cool. So then we had that. We thought it was hilarious. We hoped other people found it funny.
Oh yeah.
So we built that joke, and then we just expanded on it. And that, because of Will's one joke, we have issue 3.
That's awesome.
That's so
Yeah.
good, though. I mean, isn't it kind of funny how sometimes the most random thing can suddenly be
Yeah.
the seed that you need in order for that plant to grow and
right. And that
branch off.
and that sprouted to us having the Hellcat. And that sprouted
I love
us
that
to,
cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got
It's one of my favorite sequences.
I was gonna say that's the other one the other animal that I really like too.
Oh, we can talk all about that because no one cares about Pocus, Emily the demon. It's all about Horus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, horse.
Oh my gosh. So exactly now, like, how is the campaign now, and where do we go from there? So, like, what is how does things look, I guess you could say, going forward, and is there anything new we should know about?
Yeah. So Will and I have kind of kept this under wraps for a while now. We actually got picked up by Source Point Press. So yeah,
That's where we need the audience.
yeah, and we were very humbled, excited, nervous, every emotion you could probably think of, because it just extends Pocus's reach, you know, to a very larger audience. So it's hard to talk about it, right? Because it's still kind of surreal, because this is our first comic book. We launched the campaign for issue 1 literally this time last year, right, Will?
Wow.
Yeah, so
it was, if not right at this time, it was close.
Yeah, we're pretty much just like a year into this whole thing, and it seems like it's moving pretty fast and in a good way for us.
Yeah. Well, it's about it. It's kind of like all things happen at the right time, and you guys deserve this. You guys have worked really hard on, and we've seen. I mean, and you guys have noticed, obviously, because you run the campaign, but you guys have seen the success of this campaign grow each time, and that base keeps growing more and more, and you get more demand for like just other pieces of new material. I won't say necessarily new material, but new ways of being able to present this story.
Yeah.
So like, you know, maybe like trade backs or
yeah,
you know, different covers, variant covers and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot more people asking for, I don't know, I guess more special stuff to it, I guess.
And that's kind of surreal to us, because I don't think you and I expected like this to even get to this point.
No, I think, well, I don't even think it was a case of like we didn't expect it or we did expect it. It was just one of those things where when we started, the idea of this going past, like, we were just stoked about the idea of getting a second issue done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was like, it's like, okay, it's like, all right, this is really cool. We got our first issue of a comic book. It's doing well on Kickstarter, but it doesn't count until we get a second one.
Yeah.
And let people know that we're like serious. Yeah. And so after that, you know, when that went even better, it was kind of like, oh gosh, this is like this is something, and no, I don't think we ever imagined anything quite quite like this.
Man, that's amazing.
We just, for the sake of storytelling and structure, we always had a direction starting out, knowing where these characters were going and knowing where the general gist of the story was going. But as far as actually writing that far into it, yeah, it's definitely been a very like awesome journey. It's like the one area, like the one segment of my life that I know is like optimistic is when I hear news about, Pocus Hocus or any other project creatively that Alan and I might happen to be working on at the time, is that things are going really well, so that's like it's been awesome.
Yep.
Well, shoot, I hope you guys are saving all the clips from any kind of media attention it gets.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just taking it all of our refrigerator.
Make a scrapbook of it.
Yeah. But no, and I
got success.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's driven us to want to create more, obviously. And I can't imagine working on anything without Will, because I feel like he brings out the best in me whenever I can't help think of structure and everything like that. Will really is a catalyst for helping my imagination just explode.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it's just cool when you find that writing partner, right? And that led to Grandma Chainsaw, which that we're going to have an ash can of that, an 8-page preview that you can get on our Kickstarter. And as well as Horus in Hell, which is an origin story for everyone's favorite demonic bunny.
Yes.
That's also going to be an 8-page mini that you can get on the Kickstarter as well.
Oh,
so
and is there a different artist for that, or is that the same artist?
No. So if you get on the Kickstarter, he's been there since day one. His name's Kit Wallace. He does a lot of work.
You do a great job, by the way, man.
Yeah, he does.
Yes, he does.
The tone of the story.
Yeah, Kit does just crazy work. He's working on Good Boy. Got just a ton of other stuff. The guy's a monster, but he's done a variant cover for each edition of Pocus, and he was actually pretty much the catalyst for Horus, because he drew the first cover for Pocus, the first variant, and he drew this little pink bunny on top of Pocus's hat, and we already had a rabbit in there, and that was one of those things that just kind of evolved naturally. We're like, yeah, let's have Pocus have a demonic rabbit.
Yeah, this is the character now. Yeah.
So Kit actually did the artwork for that, and it's just, you guys have had a chance to read it, and it is. We think it's a lot of fun. We think it's wild. It's really quick paced action.
Oh my god! It also just adds a little bit more to the lore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And of course now, this character is going to be basically like y'all's Groot character, or
it's our mascot, definitely.
Baby Yoda. Like, this is the character that's going to get all the plushies.
Yes.
You can imagine, and in different faces, different variants of plush. I can only imagine.
Yep.
So there's a lot you could do with Horus, and it's great. I like it. It's a great addition to what you guys are telling. It really
awesome.
is. And
thank you.
You did an amazing job with the art.
We are, and I think Grandma Chainsaw is something that we're ready for.
I'm excited for that,
to see.
you guys.
You guys also got a chance to see the first 8 pages of that as well. And it's the exact same team that's working on Pocus. So Brian, Jason, Dave, it's everybody. We lucked out getting the team that we did, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And Brian has always wanted to work on a slasher, so we decided to kind of pour in our love for Evil Dead, slasher films, things of that genre, B horror movies, and make Grandma Chainsaw.
I feel like if we're talking about Grandma Chainsaw, I feel like it is whenever we're working on it, it's like an amalgamation of like everything that I've just been consuming in terms of media for the past 2 or 3 years. Because it's just, it's been like I have taken like, if I were like in film school or something, or doing some kind of scholarly doctorate thing, I think my thesis at this point would probably be midnight movies or cult horror movies, because I've watched so much of them the past 2 to 3 years, especially when COVID hit. That was my like comfort food. Junk food is kind of a weird thing to say, but then it's like, we start with this idea, the Grandma Chainsaw idea, and it's like just all of that is just like coming out in the form of inspiration now.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's
Well, it's not just inspiration, but it's also saying thank you to those inspirations, because
Right,
that
yeah.
that's what feeds the imagination, and all art is inspired by more art, if you will. And so what we do with it is up to us. And I think that, and I'm excited for this one. I saw, like I said, we got to see the previews for it. Art, of course, is amazing as usual. And I love that you guys are focusing on something way different.
Yeah.
And I love that you guys are using an elderly character here. And I am just excited because I love when it's something unique and it's and a character that's so different, because you don't see many like elderly protagonists or antagonists for that matter. And I don't know. I'm just excited for it because I think it's something different. You guys,
There's
Different
obviously
flavor.
there's a lot we want to talk about Grandma Chainsaw, but of course we'll save that for another time with you guys. It goes to some places that we cannot wait for you guys to read.
Now, is that campaign that's also going to right now? Is that
Yeah, so
correct?
we're planning to launch that after Pocus is fulfilled. I guess the hope is, because at the pace we're moving, we think Pocus will probably be done while this campaign's running.
Okay.
Okay.
So then we'll be able to fulfill that very fast, and then we'll launch another one a little bit after that. Yeah.
It kind of started as something that we were like, okay, we're going to allow ourselves to toy around with another idea now. We think that we're solid enough in writing Pocus that we can do that. And we just kind of started writing it a little bit on the side. And then it kind of grew. And now, we're up to, we've got, a full draft, or excuse me, a full outline for the second issue, so like,
That's amazing.
yeah, it kind of just took, it was kind of something I think we both ended up figuring out we kind of needed to do.
It's helped us with Pocus, honestly, because it was good to take a step back.
It's helped with like everything.
Yeah.
It has. It's been very therapeutic. I've always wanted to do a slasher, whether that be like writing a screenplay for one or a short film or whatever.
Yeah.
But I never had any good ideas for one. And so like this one is like as good as it, as far as slashers go for me, as good as it gets. This is like the best, the best premise for it.
I approached Will with it and I said, I want to do a slasher. I think I just want to call it Grandma Chainsaw. And he laughed. And that's when I knew it was a hit.
Yeah.
I love it because it makes me, I don't know, I guess when you put chainsaw in a title, it just automatically sparks, because one of my other favorite movies, but I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It's a little random. It's called The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. It's a 1994 Australian film.
I've never seen it. I am familiar with it though. It's been one that's been recommended to me for years.
So like a little spoiler, but there's a scene in there where one of the characters goes into a video rental store. And she's like, excuse me, but you guys have the Texas Chainsaw Mascara? And right there, I'm sitting there going, okay, I want to see that.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. We're not shy about it either. Like even in the script, because this is one thing I love about working with Will, his ability to write screenplays. And whenever we write a comic book, we treat it like a screenplay. So if you guys were to ever see one of our scripts, it looks like enter Pocus, off screen. Like it reads just like a screenplay would. It helps with the flow of everything. But yeah, whenever we were working on Grandma Chainsaw, even in the notes, Will, he notated and said, reference Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys noticed it or not, but our main character Hayden in there, he's wearing a T-shirt that has a 74 on it, and that's the year Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out.
Okay, there you go.
And that was actually we didn't write that in there. Brian, he put that in there. He thought it was funny.
Remember, but is the car kind of similar?
I don't know where he got it from, but
the car I think might be, and we have not talked with Brian directly about this, but just knowing his taste and shit in our taste too. I think the car might be Evil Dead.
Yeah, it looks a lot like. It looks like.
I could be wrong about that though. It might not be anything. Though. It might just be his, just straight from his
And it may be just my weird thing too, because I'll sit there and try to think like, ooh, what I don't look for the details and be like, ooh, is this a reference to something?
Mhm.
Or,
Yeah, you're
I'm
going to see
funny
a
that
lot
way.
of that. Like we have a couple Nightmare on Elm Street references.
Yeah,
too.
there's an Exorcist 3 reference, like there's and because like that's very much like the language in which we communicate when we write it, because like we'll have ideas, and if it's not something that we're both aware of when we're talking about the idea right away, it'll be like I'll be like, oh, that's the Exorcist 3, or I'll say something and then Al will be like, oh, that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and so when we become aware of those references, that helps creatively too, to kind of help us like emphasize that more.
Yeah.
Really
and what better way to put you in that world too a little bit more when you're doing your story, because again, it's that inspiration, so it gives you a little more thought into the focus of being in the world that you're creating there, because it's like, oh yeah, maybe in similar vein, but this kind of adds a little bit more to what we like, what we enjoy.
And that's something too that going back to Pocus, that we really tried to capture with the demon.
Yes.
We wanted him to be lovably despicable,
That makes sense.
because we have a demon that's a con man. And he's awful, he's terrible, and we wanted the reader to be like, God, I hate when he's around, but I also love when he's around too.
Right.
And I think that might actually end up being the perfect segue for Parasite.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, because like we're going on about all this stuff, but yeah, let's go straight into it. We're talking about the movie Parasite, 2019. Which is not that long ago, but it feels like it's that long ago because pandemic hits, and that already feels like a million years.
Yeah. 절대 실패하지 않는 계획이 만들어내. No plan. 계획이 없으니까 뭐가 잘못될 일도 없고.
I'm deadly serious.
So we know with Parasite, it's probably, I would say probably this century's like Citizen Kane is probably what it's going to be like, I think, because this thing was universally praised everywhere. It holds, I know, like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, even though I think that was just from a couple of rotten people who probably gave it a bad review.
Armand White.
And but man, talk about a beautiful movie top to bottom, I think, with pretty much everything, including just the technical aspects, acting aspect, production design, everything. You can go on.
Yeah, I can't say enough good stuff about this movie.
But what made you guys choose Parasite, by the way?
I don't know if it's just our love for foreign film that also had it, but it kind of flowed naturally whenever we talked last time about Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
And we were talking. Will, I think you were the one that actually mentioned it. And you're like, yeah, another great film was Parasite.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one that we had watched, like that we had watched, together recently, also, like just right before the Oscars, and had like a pretty strong reaction to it, because I mean, like I remember it was actually the night of the Oscars that we watched it. And I was still, yeah. Well, I mean, I was still like, talking back and forth to Alan about it after I'd gotten home and was watching the Oscars and everything, and just peeling back layers in my brain about it. And of course, then when it won, it was like a huge, amazingly pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just one of those movies that we just both, we had a similar positive, like similar strong reactions to it when it was over.
Yeah, and I can't wait to talk about a certain scene that happened where we both audibly looked at at each other and gasped and was like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy because like there's things in this movie that it feels like it's a just an enjoyable ride. Like you're just going to a vacation or something. You're like, you know what, this ride feels good. I'm enjoying. Look at this pretty scenery, and then boom, all of a sudden there's something that takes you right off course, and you're like, oh my god, what the hell just happened?
Yes.
And after it does, after it does that the first time, it doesn't really stop.
Right.
And that's the point where like I really like started to respond to it, because one of my favorite movies of all time is Adaptation, the Charlie Kaufman, Spike Jonze adaptation. And one of the reasons I like that so much is because it is impossible to predict.
Yeah.
I mean, impossible. And it's always to the point where you are, it's like almost, I almost want to call it interactive, because you're just like, it breaks you out of passively watching it so effectively. And for me, that's kind of what Parasite did. It did that. Let's just go ahead and mention the scene, because I think we know it's when the former housekeeper shows back up at the house and rings the doorbell and comes in, and there's this underground laughter. and that's the part where it's like, okay, we're not in Kansas anymore. You know, that pulls the rug out from underneath everybody. And it's hilarious, by the way, watching this movie for the first time with people. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do, because that's the point where where people look over at you and they're like, what is going on?
Is this real?
So and that's the thing, right? Like, because on the surface, the movie's just about this rich family, and they have everything. But more importantly, they have help, and by help I mean, drivers, maid, and then you have the polar opposite of this, and it's this family that lives practically underground in the slums. If it rains, their house floods. They keep their windows open so pesticide can come in to kill the bugs that are in the house. They have to. Of course, the toilet is probably the most infamous thing.
That's the weirdest spot to have it in too. I'm like, oh my god, they have to crawl up on that thing, and then like,
it's an ingenious. I don't know if it was a set design decision or how that came about, but it's really brilliant, because it's just the way it's placed is just immediately puts everything off kilter.
And it's wild how everything happens too, because a friend of the son that lives in the slums comes and approaches him and says, hey, I need you to pose as this. You're really smart. I need you to be a tutor for this rich girl while I'm gone. And whenever I come back, I'm going to ask her out all this stuff, which is which is kind of important for later. Like when you're watching it the first time, you're like, why does that even matter? And then the son that lives in the slums slowly infiltrates the family, and then gets people from his family slowly involved too, to where the whole family just kind of tries to start taking over.
It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. It's one of well, that's one thing. How successful this movie was too is that when it was first released, it was like it was very limited. However, even in its very limited scale, it was making really good money. So then they were adding on more theaters to its run, and each time it got bigger and bigger. And then of course there's the Oscar effect. So the movie gets the buzz, it gets the nominations, it wins the awards, including like best picture, best screenplay, which makes sense for the screenplay for sure, best director.
It's wild it didn't win best actor. Like we didn't have a best actor actress. You know what I mean?
But they did win on to win best cast in a motion picture for the first time at the Screen Actors Guild Awards.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So like they were picking up that and some Golden Globe Awards. Oh yeah, and best international film was another one too. So that's kind of crazy how like they won best picture and international film, and that's huge for non-English language film, I think, to win.
It's just crazy awards. To me that it won the Palme d'Or and the Oscar, because those are two institutions that I feel like very rarely intersect in that way. They both stand for two completely different. The unbiased way to say it, I believe, would be two completely different qualities of like movie making, not necessarily good and bad quality. It's just that they're looking for different qualities in films. Obviously, Cannes is looking for artistic merit and weight and meaning, and then with the Oscars it's more of a, I guess, spectacle effect.
Yeah.
And so anyway, to see a movie really just bridge those two in that way was what was incredible to, for me.
Yeah, and the fact is, it was a historic moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and this really took international effects. It did the same thing overseas, where it just grew exponentially in terms of theater sales and everything overseas. I know in Japan, I think it was the biggest Korean film in like 15 years or something like that for them. I mean, this was huge for them over in Japan too. So it's crazy how it just had this huge effect, but that tells you how successful it was.
Oh yeah.
And it's one of those that falls into the category of sometimes things can definitely be overhyped.
Yeah.
But this one was hyped up for a good reason.
Absolutely. It really was.
It's not all. It's rare that a movie lives up to its hype. I've seen that happen a few times in recent years, pleasantly. So that is happening more often. Like it happened with Parasite, and it also, I thought, was the case with Lady Bird. I really loved Lady Bird. I walked into the theater not expecting to hate it, but expecting to come out and be like, man, that was way overhyped. But it was not at all.
Right.
Parasite, I had, it was a similar reaction. It was deserved.
Oh, absolutely. What makes Parasite a favorite movie for you guys?
This movie, and it's not so much on the nose, but it is, but it isn't. It's so strange for me to say this, but it definitely shows the disparity between classes.
Yes.
And it's shown a lot by expectations of what the expectation is to be rich, the expectation is to be poor, and how even the rich people, it's weird to say this, but they're stuck too, just as much as the poor are stuck in that way in this system. And that's illustrated by the father of the rich family. They always make the joke, and even the boy Desong, he's the one that first mentions it, and he's like, they all smell the same. And that's kind of like our first inkling to the oh crap, their cover is about to be blown. And it makes me think about that meme, like it smells like broke. And I just imagine the song just being a total jerk about it. But I think the movie's just a perfect representation for the class system and the disparities that everyone faces.
No question about it. Yeah.
Yep.
What about you, Will?
Well, there are
Jinx, Chad. Jinx.
there are a number of things. The first and foremost, it was something that I mentioned, or it's something that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Just the lack of I don't know if it's certainly an original movie, but I don't know if originality does it justice. Like the lack of being able to predict what's going to happen. Just the idea that this one thing happens, near the midway point of the movie that really pulls out the rug from underneath everything else and sends it down this spiral of fascinating, unpredictable storytelling. That's kind of like my bread and butter, So that's a big thing for me. Another thing is just the level of restraint that the movie has. That you just feel very much at ease watching it, knowing that you're very much in the hands of a filmmaker who knows what he's doing, where he's going with it, what he wants to communicate with it. And whenever a filmmaker is making something and is that confident, it really shines through in the movie and is just like a joy to watch. So there's that aspect of it as well. And it does something that is near impossible for film to do on several different occasions, which is that it combines all of these genres together in a blender, and it does it so seamlessly, and the movie never feels uneven. That's like just miraculous. Like I I don't know many people who can pull that off. So yeah, it's the very, very strong. I mean, it definitely deserves its reputation.
And can we talk about when the guy comes, when they talk about DeSong's trauma from a year ago, and the guy comes out of the basement, and while DeSong's eating the cake, and how horrific that scene is?
It's terrifying. But like but it's also kind of funny. There's like
Yeah.
an edge of humor
Yes.
to it, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm talking about, where it combines these genres like so effortlessly. Sometimes even in the same scene, like that's really hard to do. So
Yeah. Well, even like in the end, like towards the end, you have that party that I think was going on there, and then like that's where some stuff was happening to characters that was like, whoa, that had to kill him. I had to kill him. But then the one, the brother, I believe, he ends up kind of surviving. You're like,
right,
how?
Oh yeah, and then he's just laughing at all the outcomes that happen to him, and that's also just another metaphor too. Like it's just, God, it's just wild, and I mean this in the best way possible. But the movie didn't end when you expected it to, and usually whenever you say that, it's like, oh God, it should have ended 20 minutes ago. You thought that the movie ended here, and then it keeps going, and then you find out the father actually ran downstairs to live.
Yeah.
And then the son now has this grandiose idea that he's going to go to college. He's going to make enough money to buy his dad the house so the dad can just walk out freely. But we all know that he's not going to. They're just going to be folding pizza boxes forever.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just kind of it's hopeful in a sense that it's nice to know that he wants something better for himself. But then it's also hopeless because they're just going to be stuck because of the class system that their society faces them with.
And what better way to kind of show that, even like, and what is so relatable, I think, worldwide in that regard, because I mean, you look at even today, of course, like just going based here on the States, because that's our experience, but you go to college, you go and get a higher education, you get a degree. But for many, really like the majority who ends up getting a degree, you find yourself still stuck in the working class. There's
you're
still
crippled with debt and everything else.
There's still debt under your name as well for going. So, but that's the hopeful part, is that you hope that somehow you can get out of it. But I guess if you're trying to be realistic, it's like, well, it may be a small chance, but you can probably somehow still survive. I know that sounds like a Debbie Downer thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, it's true, right?
Well, I mean, the movie, definitely ends on a downer note, and I think that I seem to remember an interview with Bong Joon-ho talking about that, where he mentioned like that the ending to it is definitively like pessimistic. Like that's the note that he's playing at that particular point in time, since the movie jumps around in terms of genres and tones and things like that. That's kind of where it ends. So I mean, it is kind of the downer, and just by its nature, it's going to be a downer because the movie
very nihilist.
Well, and that's the
well,
thing.
it kind of ends at
I was gonna say, like, with the title itself, Parasite. I mean, I think the obvious thing is you see, like, obviously this lower class family invades itself, if you will, into this rich family to kind of just live off of them, with their utilities and their expenses and stuff like that. However, the rich is also doing the same thing with the poor, because they're pretty much leeching off of the poor in order to do
to take them to places, to make their dinner, stuff like that. Now, one scene that I did want to talk about, and it was so awkward, and you needed a shower after you watched it, but they're hiding underneath the table because the family comes back early, and the husband and wife of the rich family decide to get frisky, and the stuff that they say to each other is so funny because they're trying to talk. She's trying to talk dirty, and their idea of talking dirty is her, doing stuff in their mind is what poor people would do, right? Because she's like, tell me to buy drugs. Like stuff like that. It's just like,
God.
oh my God.
And that wife, oh my God. Some of the way that she was too, like she was just so oblivious for something. Where she, ignorance was bliss for her, and she just seemed to not really get it. But this family that was on the poor family, if you will, the Park, I think they're the Park family.
The Park was the rich family.
Okay, sorry. Park was the rich family, and then I forget what was the name of the the poor family all of a sudden. But they were just smart. They were so calculated with how they were just able to get in there, which is pretty crazy in itself.
Yeah, because they did it seamlessly. And
They
then
really did.
of course the most humorous scene was, and it's also dark comedy, and the thing that Will and I love. But whenever they take the peaches and rub it on the servant's face, to incapacitate her.
Oh my god,
that
right.
whole sequence was just comedic genius, like comedy of manners, brilliant. Yeah.
And then the way that they were like, oh, we got the place to ourselves when the rich family goes out, and they kind of have that moment of pleasure, if you will.
That whole sequence right before she shows up, the former housekeeper shows up, is just like the most unbearably suspenseful. I mean, it's so tense, and I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I haven't studied the scene enough to know technically why that is, like beat for beat why that is, but whatever is happening on a technical filmmaking level in that scene, it just makes it's insane.
Well, it reminds me a lot of, I guess you say, like, I guess I would say more like the style of Hitchcock to some extent, because he was really good about revving up or having this really steady ride up to a buildup of something. And walking a tightrope, walking on the eggshells, the sorts. And like one of the big ones that come to me is like his film Marnie. I don't know if you guys ever saw that one, but there's a particular scene where like the janitors, for how they do that. Like I'm sitting there even with my I recommend it if you guys get a chance. But there's a great scene. Me and Chad would call it the janitor scene, and the way he does it, it just makes you on the edge of your seat. So it reminds me a lot of that. And Orson Welles was very, I think, calculating with his filmmaking as well.
Yeah, the opening scene from Touch of Evil.
Yes, Touch of Evil. Yeah, another one too. So I'm bad with names in this movie, so I apologize. But
we all butcher them.
I want to be respectful and be like, but this guy, the director, Bong Joon-ho.
Oh gosh.
I know. Typical white guy messing up. He just was brilliant. He was brilliant with his movie. So his style, like you said, his style was just very. He was very confident. He knew what he wanted, and you could see that. You could see that in his work. The plan was out there from the beginning.
Yeah. You always feel like you're in the hands of someone who, I mean, has like a tricks up his sleeve. Like even before the big reveal, of course, is that scene we just talked about with the former housekeeper returning. But the whole movie just has this feeling like, it's proceeding down this very calculated, planned road, and that you're going somewhere that's very
that's true.
It's definitely a hallmark of suspense, like they it forces you to wait something out that is going to be a train wreck, and you're just like, oh god.
And that's the beauty of some movies that are like this, because it definitely puts you on a ride. And so for like 2 hours at least, you're sitting there, and it doesn't feel like 2 hours. You're just like, you're engrossed with what's going on. So whenever a filmmaker is able to deliver that kind of experience for me in that regard, and it doesn't feel like, oh, it's taking too long to get somewhere, I had to tip my hat to them, because I'm like, you guys did an amazing job with this. This is exactly what I want in my movie experience.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are a few things that are better than going to a movie and having no idea where it's going.
Right.
I mean,
and this one definitely doesn't.
No, if you really think about it, that is a rare experience these days. And that's the case even with good movies, with some great films. I mean, there's some filmmakers who that's their point, is they want you to know right out of the gate where the film is going. I had that reaction when I saw Nightmare Alley here recently. There's the twist ending at the end of Nightmare Alley that I think Guillermo del Toro definitely wants you to know well ahead of time that that's where it's headed. I don't think he wants a big mystery behind it, because he's more interested in the poetry of it and so on and so forth. Yeah. And so so in other words, there are great movies that are like that also, but man, when you get one that is just taking you on this ride and you don't know where it's going to go, like this, or I mentioned adaptation, or anything by like Martin McDonagh that just balances these a million different genres so perfectly, like in the same scene. It really is a rare treat to be able to experience that. So
right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this was just kind of crazy because you had the thrills, you had the suspense, you had the drama, of course. I was just really pleasantly surprised when I first saw it. I know that for sure. And I was just, I don't know. I was enthralled with it. It was just amazing. And I was rooting for it.
Yes, it was.
I was rooting for it at the Oscars. I do know that. But I was, and the crazy thing is in the back of my head, I kept thinking like, and there's no way it's going to win Best International Film. No question about it. But there's no way it's going to win everything else necessarily.
I was really shocked.
But the fact that it won basically the majority of its nominations was amazing and historic. So I was like, yes, thank you. Thank you, Oscars, for doing this, doing the right thing.
Right.
But so here's another question that Josh normally also asks our guests. So we got to ask you guys. If there was a sequel or a prequel that were to be made, what would you like to see? And who would you like to see in it? But before we answer that, there's one thing I want to mention. So I read up that HBO is doing a limited series of some sort on this movie. Now, the rumor is that they got Mark Ruffalo and Tilda Swinton involved, which is a little weird for me because I'm sitting there going, this is leave it to South Korea to do their thing for it.
Right.
Why are we casting a couple of white people here to lead this role of this popular movie when it did fine on its own and with the creators that were there behind it? Anyway, I digress. But let's leave the question for you guys. What do you think overall, and how do you see this?
So I am going to add to this because Josh actually he messaged me privately about this, and I have to read his exact message because it's hilarious. Let me see if I can find it here really
Josh,
quick.
you're in trouble, man.
Okay, so he said this was he said, "Hey, I was thinking," and this was going to be good. For the recast part, Will, I'm going to leave this up to you because you are so much better at this than I am. He said, "Hey, for the recast part, we should do it as if there's going to be an American remake. I know none of us want that, but for the sake of the show."
Yeah, there we go.
So I'm throwing you guys a curveball.
Josh thinking ahead.
Yeah.
But I guess we could play that game, right? Like if there, if this was an American adaptation,
if like
which it kind of is going to be with the HBO thing, so it's kind of
Warner
a perfect
Brothers
segment.
getting their hands on it.
Yeah. Will, what would you think?
Meryl Streep plays the character.
No, that's. I mean,
there's no question. I mean, the greatest living actor of our time. Right. There's no question about it. You got to have her involved.
Yeah, I'm not mad about Mark Ruffalo and Tilda Swinton. I mean, I think that would be pretty cool. I think that this is tricky for me because normally I am very, very much on board with the leave it alone, don't remake it thing. Also, not to mention potential for some films, but there's the potential question, and rightly so, being asked nowadays about like appropriation and things like that. This one I think is a little bit different, and here is why. I think that this was a film made about capitalism, and it's not that I don't think it is effective at universally communicating those messages. It is very much so, but I don't think the idea of having a American version of this that is maybe more culturally attuned to American subtleties and nuances and things like that is awful, simply because so much of our problems and our just economic woes or triumphs are based around this capitalist system that we are right now, especially. I mean, the whole world is at a tipping point of immense change, I think, and we're thinking about this stuff. So I think that there are things, I think, culturally to be said about America in a remake like this, specifically because of like the capitalist angle. But yeah, I mean, like the idea of like, I don't know, like remaking like Roma or something,
right?
in English would be completely. I mean, that it completely defeats the purpose,
Well,
right?
that's kind of how it felt like, say, like the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah,
I was
completely
like,
pointless.
This is completely pointless. You guys just did a shot for shot remake here, or the remake of Psycho when they did it in '98 or something. Again,
Psycho was an especially strange one, and that was a mainstream horror movie experiment that no one figured out what it was about. I don't even think Gus Van Sant, even to this day, knows what it's about.
Yeah.
Why what the artistic motivation was to do that. But I typically remakes are a case of like leave it alone. But like with this one, I think maybe. And if you've got actors like Mark Ruffalo and Tilda Swinton, I mean, it's not like
they're great actors too.
Yeah, they're fantastic actors. It's not like they're casting like, I don't know, Machine Gun Kelly and like I don't know, whoever the equivalent of.
I don't know. I just know that if they can't, like whoever they cast for lower class people, they need to be fat people because
wow, thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Chad. And you just have the dichotomy there. I'm just saying.
Man, and I was actually going to recommend what's is it Anya Taylor-Joy? I was actually going to recommend her for being the sister that comes in to pretend to be the art teacher.
That was
there you go.
Kill that role, yes.
Yeah, I thought she'd kill that.
She would.
You saw her in the Gambit, right?
What is it?
What's that?
I think it's the Gambit.
Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, listen, Northman for me.
Yeah, I have not seen the Queen's Gambit yet. I want to watch the Queen's Gambit. Everybody tells me it's incredible. Yeah. I went to the movie theater, and Alan, by the way, I'm glad that you're here and we're having this conversation. Because I've been meaning to tell you something, while we're on this topic. Alan offered to let me watch The Northman, which he owns. He has The Northman. Right. And a couple weeks ago, after one of our we were working on Grandma Chainsaw, the outline, I left your house and I went and I drove to the movie theater and I watched The Northman. Okay. And I wanted to tell you, if you were investigating like your Vudu account or something like that, I did not take you up on your offer, and I mean no disrespect. I just really wanted to see it in theaters.
No, it's okay. I have to change my password anyway because I bought Morbius out of morbid curiosity.
Okay.
I could go into that too. That's different.
Listen, guys, if you ever do a bonus episode where we just talk about bad movies,
we can set it up.
Yeah, Will and I have watched every Neil Breen movie. I don't know if you guys have watched any of those.
The Neil Breen movies.
Yeah. Well, what's the title? Like, what's some titles?
Oh, God, but it doesn't. Okay, if you don't know Neil Breen, you don't know the title. Yeah, yeah. Twisted Pair, Fateful Findings. Listen,
makes Tommy Wiseau look like.
Oh God.
Okay, so what we're gonna do one day, listeners, hear us now. Whether Chad and Chris like it or not, this is what we're doing. We are going to do a role reversal. Where Will and I are going to interview them. About Twisted Pair or Fateful Findings, whichever one they decide to watch.
There we go.
And I cannot wait.
I'm good for the challenge.
For it. Yeah, and we'll even throw out the if it were to be remade, because no one can ever remake that masterpiece.
Yeah.
It is lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
Parasite can, but not that.
Right? Not Twisted Pair. Yeah, but Parasite.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What do we get ourselves into?
Yeah, a lifelong friendship, unfortunately.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, so I know there's a pause, but I gotta ask this one too. Why should someone see this film?
I just think it's important. Genuinely, I just think this is it's one of those movies that gets thrown around all the time, but I think that this is genuinely an important film. And it lays this out so well that I think it puts it in more perspective, because something like Parasite, it can happen, and it does happen daily. I mean, maybe not to this extreme that the ending goes to, but
you never know, it could.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but for the most part, like, I mean, it happens every day. We're all living it.
Yes.
Whether we want to admit it or not. And like like you guys talked about earlier, given how everything's going now with like inflation, stuff like that, gas prices, of course, we're all just trying to survive.
Yep.
And that's the premise of Parasite. Even the rich people are just trying to survive to the best of their knowledge on what they have to survive, because there's always that weird disparity in with people being too wealthy, and they think that $100 will buy them one loaf of bread because they don't know how much it costs or how much it works. And then you have people that are scrounging for scraps of bread like they do in Parasite.
Right.
Yeah, and then you give them $100 and they can make that last for 2 weeks easy.
Yeah.
It's I just think it's important.
I agree.
Yep.
I absolutely agree.
I would say that yes, I do think it is an important movie. I think one good reason to see it is that it's a good candidate for maybe helping some people transition into being fans of movies with subtitles, because I know a lot of it is a common thing that I hear that people don't want to watch a movie with subtitles, and it's like, if you actually do, I think a lot of people who would sit down and watch Parasite would really just be like, blown away by it and really pleasantly surprised by it, because there is that one scene that we talked about earlier really is important, because that's the point where it makes everybody it slaps everybody in the face, and gets their attention. So I think that it could be a good candidate for that, despite the fact that there's an HBO remake in the works.
And hopefully Meryl Streep does join in at some point.
That would be
Tilda Swinton with Meryl Streep on screen. That would be interesting.
That would be.
I'd pay for that.
Yeah, definitely.
So before, of course, we wrap up some things and all, let's try to get you guys promoting what you guys got coming up, which we talked about, of course, in a little bit of great length in the beginning. But what are some links or places that you want people to know and they should go visit for your projects?
Yeah, so Will and I, of course, are going to be sharing out the pre-launch link. I'm not exactly sure when this episode will air, but we're hopeful to launch Pocus on the 28th of June, so this month. And yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Chaps of Fury. And then, of course, pocushocuscomic@gmail.com is always a good place to reach us. And, of course, just following us on Kickstarter, because that's the best way to get all the project notifications and when this thing's launching.
And sign up for that, you guys.
Yeah, do it. I did. No, thank you. Will, what about you, man?
Yeah, just pretty much all of that, and Instagram. If you want to find me on Instagram, it's at WillRad82, WILLRAD82, and my Vimeo handle, if you're interested in checking out any of my film and video work, is just vimeo.com/WillRad.
That's awesome. Gosh, so now at least we got that out of the way there. But of course, before we go and all that stuff too, one more thing, guys. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Because the thing is, it's such a pleasure to talk to you guys, and as you can see, like, we can go on talking forever and ever.
Oh no! If we didn't have lives outside of all this stuff, I'm sure all of us. It would be a bad idea for all of us to meet up together, because we would have to. We'd have to just devote a whole day.
Yeah.
just
morning till night.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Although it'd be interesting to see me stay out that late, because these days I have to wake up super early for work and all that. But I would get over it, because I have a lot of fun. But you guys are so much fun to talk to, and I can't wait that we can get together again, which we will. There's no question about it. We've been talking about some ideas already, and I think your listeners are, you're in for a big surprise. But in the meantime, thank you guys again for joining us. I'm Chris. You guys can find me on Instagram at xtopherabaz. You can find me on Twitter at CBC Monkey. I'm on Letterboxd, but just follow Chad or Josh for how you can reach over to me, because I forget my name on Letterboxd.
Still not remember your.
It's my brand. It's my brand. That's how I do it every end of the show. Go ahead, Chad. Where can people find you, man?
Instagram and the Tweety Box, and Letterboxd. Green Screen Grin. There we go.
See,
all the same. Streamlined, minimal, to the point. There we go.
So, listeners, thank you again for joining us. Josh, you better be here for the next conversation or something, or you're in trouble because these guys are starting to take it personal.
I don't know if your guys' bandwidth can handle another person.
Oh man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But,
don't forget to follow the podcast on ynfmoviepod on all popular social platforms.
That's right. And then we got some great things coming up as well. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you guys next time. All right. And then Chad, you know how to end it. Go ahead.
I'm not doing the thing.
There you go.
So, are we going to talk about how much of a masterpiece Human Centipede is?
Oh man,
and that's where we cut.
Oh god.